Hey guys, in this video I'm going to take you through the steps of restoring this. Basically just a computer desktop, and what happened is previously you can see it's just made out of this like MDF, and the screws that went into it, this wasn't strong enough and a jolt just kind of sent the screws out. So today I'm rebuilding this and I'm going to walk you guys through how. Alright, so first off, let's look at the material. This is what I have right here, and this is just some scrap. This is 1x6 and this is 1x4, and I believe 2 of these 1x6s and one strip of this 1x4 will be enough to copy over the dimensions. So what I'm going to do is you're just going to real quick grab the length, which is 23 and about 3/4. So I'm going to mark that 23 3/4. Now that we have this length measurement, we're going to go ahead and cut it. And when I do this, I'm always cutting a little bit like 1/8 of an inch or like 1/16 of an inch too big, because what we're going to do in the end is actually cut this out and trace it with a router bit. Now, let's make the cut. Alright, now that we have our cut, we're going to go ahead and lay it on top of the other piece, and we're just going to copy down that measurement. So, I'm going to cut that. We're going to do the same thing on our 1x4 material. Just swap the length down, transfer the measurement, and cut. Alright, now grab our boards and just lay them down on top. You can see we're actually not quite wide enough. So I'm going to see if I can find another board to fill in this gap here. Alright, so I have a board that'll work, and we're just going to put this right here, and we're going to describe it to the measurement, and we're going to cut. Alright, now that we have our boards, you can see this is actually the finished on one side type of 1x material. And I actually have a planer, so I'm going to go ahead and run this through the planer real quick. If you don't have a planer, just sanding it at like a high grit and slowly working your way down will also work. By me, I'm just going to run it through the planer, and I might sand it at a high grit. Alright, now that we have our boards planed and smooth, what I'm going to do is just a quick glue up. Alright everyone, so now we have our board here, and what we're going to do is just take this tabletop that I want to rebuild, and we're just going to put it on top, grab a marker, and just trace it out. Now that I have this, we're going to grab a jigsaw and just roughly cut this area off. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just going to roughly cut this. Alright, now that we have this cut out with the jigsaw, we're going to put our tabletop down, line everything up, and we're going to clamp it down on both sides. Then what we're going to do is, I have a router here, and I have a bit on it that I think it's called a pilot bit, and it's 3/4 of an inch, and we have a blade right here, then we have a bearing down here. And what happens is this bearing will follow along the side of the wood, and it'll trace that down to here. So it'll actually cut this. Alright. Now, when we do this, you got to make sure that you hold it perfectly straight, flat around the board, because if you twist it at all or bend it like that, that'll screw this up and it'll actually bring it in. So, gotta make sure we do this, we don't let anything tilt, and just have a hand right here. And you can see our design has been transferred onto this edge right here. Now, it's not perfect, so what I'm going to do is take a high grit sandpaper on my sander. I'm just going to go over this a couple of times, and I'm going to move down the grits. Actually, I'm just going to sand it on a high grit, and then I think what I'm going to do is add a chamfer here with the router. So I'll put the chamfer bit on, and we'll just run it around this whole thing, give it a nice kind of beveled look. Let's do that. Alright, now that it's all sanded, we're going to get to staining it. And what stain you choose is up to you. It's all personal preference. But for this build, I'm going to go with Espresso by Minwax. So we're just going to apply that on here. And a lot of people say to apply stain with a rag and not a brush. But I get these brushes, probably, I don't know, 30, 40 of them for like $3 at a discount store. And they're just cheap brushes. And I've been using them, and I've never had a problem putting on stain with them. And you know, it works nicely, and then I can actually just use paper towels to wipe the stain off. And again, no issues. And I think that's a lot cheaper than, you know, using a rag every time you want to stain something. So. Alright, now that we've applied the stain, I'm going to go and wipe it off. Wipe off all this excess. And I'm going to go around in circles too, and this will make sure that stain is gone evenly everywhere, all over this board. Make sure this is clean, there's no dust, like that. And we're going to flip this over. And we're going to do the other side.
All right, now that this is all stained, we're gonna wait for this to dry, and then we're gonna apply in about 4 to 6 hour intervals, probably anywhere from 2 to 3 coats of polyurethane on this. And then we're gonna get to mounting it back on where it belongs. All right, so now it's time to drill these holes. So what I'm gonna do is lay down this piece that I'm drilling this onto. Grab a pencil, I'm gonna grab a tape measure, and I'm just gonna roughly center it this way. All right, good. So now that it's kind of centered here, because this doesn't need to be spot on, but we want it spot on these sides here. That's very important. So just center it out on the sides. All right, so now that we got this all set up and centered, I'm just gonna hold it down and pre-drill our holes. You gotta be careful to not go too deep, otherwise I'll just go straight through. Alright, now that we have our holes drilled, I'm going to take these lag screws and I'm just going to screw them right in. Just get them hand tight. Whoa! And again, don't need to pre-drill a lot, and you definitely don't want too big of a bit, because doing those will compromise kind of how strong these screws are. They'll just go right into the hole, and then I can get them hand tight. Tighten them up. And make sure you try and keep these bolts as straight as you can while you're drilling, or while you're screwing them in. Also want to avoid over tightening these, because then you'll kind of essentially strip out the wood. And you. All right, so this is very secure, and what I might do is give it a quick sand, and we have a finished product. So here we are, restoring an old tabletop. You can use a technique like this for a lot of things. Very simple, cut down, glue up, sand, and that routering trick, and you're done. So there you go, guys.